before starting, like whoever heard of the word threat modeling? Wow, nice. Whoever heard of word security? Everyone. And hacking? Threat of hacking? Anyone of her, like have a fear of get hacked or something? Oh, everyone. Okay. So hacking is a negative word, right? But actually it's in a way not, but we'll see what it is. Before going to threat modeling, which is actually, it says like it is part of DevSecOps and it gets used in the design phase. Before that, we should know what is DevSecOps. Everyone heard of DevSecOps? So it is actually DevOps, but security everywhere. So first half we will be like looking into what exactly DevSecOps and where exactly threat modeling fits in that, and then we see what is actually the threat modeling and how you use threat modeling for securing yourself or your application. So today we will be covering, first will be understand what is DevSecOps, why security comes into the picture, what are the benefits of the threat modeling once you use it, then what is the threat modeling methodology, then threat modeling workflow, how it works and how we can improve security. So, and then at the end, what are the challenges it comes when you start using DevSecOps. So the basic fundamental of information security is this 5 building basics. Authenticity, sorry. So anyone should not be able to log in your computer without knowing your username and password. So there's integrity. No one should be able to change if they are not supposed to change. So, or it's not supposed to change. So someone should, your database or something should not be modified if something not happened. Then your availability, your Wi-Fi router should be available all the time. Your Google, when you are triggering, it should give you search result. If it's not available, then it may cause due to the security issues. Confidentiality, which is actually it should be whatever someone should know. Anyone is, if is not allowed to know, they should not know. Non-repudiation means anyone have done something and then you have to provide a proof. You should be able to prove like yes, it is like someone have done this, and you should be able to pinpoint, okay, this guy have done this one. If you don't have any proof later, and then anyone is not accountable for that. What are the OWASP is one of the security organization that keep eyes on the internet and looking into that whatever the security issues we have. It releases its list every 3 to 4 years, and it is the last list of 2017. These are the top list issues lists here. It is actually injection, broker authentication, all these things you can have a look. These are part of a type of security issues that you can have it in your application. It's mostly for application. Yes. Injection can be SQL injection, it can be any cross-site scripting injection. So it's different type of injection comes under that. Why we need security? So you need it because your application is running. We are currently looking into only part of application. So application is running, then you need to reduce risk of maybe losing data. Maybe if you are a very good brand as a company, then you want to protect your brand. If you tomorrow you know that Facebook hacked this many guys, then no one will start using Facebook, right? So and that will at the end it will all come down to your brand value. So it's actually at the end your value, your money. So every product and everything runs from business. So actually it impacts your business at the end. So if you are not secure, your customer will run away for sure. So protect building customer confidence. So if you are very much secure, then you will be tomorrow if you log in into your Facebook account and you see that name and your address detail change, you will just delete your account and will not go again. So you are building the trust of the customer. Then you protect the data, not only customer's data but yours data also, because as an organization you need to protect your own data as well as you need to protect the data for all the customers. what it helps you? It helps you to improve trust, it helps you to get more investor and grow your business. In 21st century there are more attacks because we have now open to the world. Internet started and then we are open to everyone, and why it's happening over on internet, the major thing is you are available 24/7 on the internet. So if you have open a website, this is one of the thing you need to have is like your website keep running but for your users, but at the same time it's running for the hackers. So anytime anyone can go and try your application, try to break that. And in this internet world you cannot stop hackers to attack your system. Only thing you can do is defend. You cannot stop anyone to attack you in the internet world. These are few top breaches. The blue one are in the millions and one of them is grayish, is in a billion. So these many data breaches happen, the biggest ones. So it is mostly goes with the identity theft, your credit card theft or something, your data stolen. Yahoo lost its data, Equifax everyone knows, like this, it lost a lot of data, then they realized it after 6+ months. It is due to some vulnerability of struts. Anyone heard of Karbanka? Wow, nice. So Karbanka is a very nice thing. You can go Google. It's one of the financial institutions have this virus, or you say program that worked very nicely. How it got caught was very nice. ATM was dispensing money. No one was there, but it was dispensing money. So then it got caught, like why it's happening. Then they realized it's very nice thing happened, and actually they lost somewhere around $900 million across 100 banks in the world. So this is the magnitude of the issue if you have, and how it happened. It happened very easily and very smart way. It is known as social engineering. So if you cannot hack the system, hack the human. So what they spam email to everyone on a bank, sending a link which is a very cute site or something, and few people go, click there, downloaded a malware. That malware took that system in their account, and slowly it started spreading itself in the network till the day it find the admin system. They found the admin system and they start giving back feedback to the hackers of keystrokes, screenshots, and it was that for few months, and then the hackers understand the banking system, how it works, what are the values, and then they start using online online shopping. They did some stolen directly from the account of some of the customers, and there were the magnitude was around $900 million. Someone says $140 billion, but somewhere around $900 million is proven was lost. So now you see if a small thing can go in, then how big impact it is. And if you think you are secure with your mobile, are you secure with your Wi-Fi? The more easy things in happening in this world is making you more insecure. Your router can be hacked tomorrow, your switch can be hacked, your Wi-Fi can be anything. You think you are using any medium can be hacked. However, in this we will be looking only about application security, but yes, this is one of the magnitude. You can see that what happened with Karbanka. You can Google it, and I copied it from the Wikipedia page, so you can look what happened with that. So let's start with the basic of how security works when it was the basic SDLC, when we were using waterfall model. This is a very nice waterfall model, everyone must know. If you don't know, it's simple. You go design, implement, plan, analyze, design, implement those changes and test, everything works fine. Then actually security team comes here. Before deploying to, a guy will come known as pen tester, penetration testing. So that guy will have no idea of your code. They will just try with some inputs, like now let's break the application, and there you find issue. Then you tell back the developer will go try to fix this, comes back, then pen testing happens, and then you push it to production. This is the in a normal way when, and it's never a developer job. Security was I am using the word was because now it's coming to the developer. Security was never a developer job. It was someone security specialist will come, do pen testing, deploy application, it works fine. Now once we move from standard waterfall, we move to agile, then we did this. We will do it like continuously faster, but where the security is, I think somewhere still here, just before release you do the same stuff, it is a faster because you are doing in the sprints. Then the word shift left got coined. So now you have a word which says shift left. So what this shift left means actually. So now you have DevOps, now you have agile. So you are very fast, you are pushing the new feature. Every new feature means every time a new bug. You simple thing like that. Every time you are adding a new feature, you are introducing a bug. Even you know or you don't know, you are probably going to introduce a new bug, and it can be a security bug or vulnerability also. So now what we said, it's shift left in the process actually. So we were doing somewhere acceptance sense here, we were testing in a pen test, but now we say no, we are not going to do security here. Let's shift towards left in the process chain and push it, instead of acceptance, put in the integration test, push in the development, design, requirement LS, push the security part towards left, because now in the last few decades we have learned the security is most important stuff, and now we are more moving to internet. Now the internet, your machines, your hardware, everything is getting advanced, and the things which was very hard earlier, it's getting easier to do. So now we need more security. So now we came with this word DevSecOps. So dev and ops, in between security comes, which is a shield that actually protect your application from any security vulnerability. So this is actually a process and a culture change. So let's have a comparison how it works. So earlier you had development, then testing, QA, acceptance, production. You apply here security, go in production. Now you want to have security applied everywhere. So development, testing, everywhere you need to have the security there. DevSecOps actually is not a tool that you can get in and you will start working. It's a methodology that everyone need to learn, and it's more vastly for developers, because they are going to the key players or holding the responsibility of security. So with the DevSecOps, you will be doing security integration across your DevSecOps stages. So when you have this DevOps ready, if it is secured entirely, not only from development, it should be from planning phase. It should be you should decide it from the plan phase that your security, what should be your security stuff and everything. So your if your DevOps is fully covered with security, then it becomes DevSecOps. So next, what are the security processes in the SDLC? So when you start, earlier we had this requirement, design, development, testing and release. So these are very known to everyone as a IT person. Now it actually changing because it's more of the process change. So instead of requirement is going to be in the security phase, will be known as assessment. So you are assessing that the security stuff. In the design phase, you will be doing design review and threat modeling. Then you have development, will add extra stuff which is secure code review. Earlier we were used to do the code review. Now you have to think with the lens of security also. So everywhere you have to put a lens of security, and then you start looking into what exactly and what are the impact is going to happen if it is not those. Then instead of testing, it's not only functional testing, it's going to add on with the security testing. So you have to test a security perspective of any application. Then you have release, instead of that host level review. Release doesn't mean like you release in the, now it's a host level review, means if our application is running on the host, maybe your application don't have security bug, if your host itself have bug, your machine itself have bug, it's a port open or something which is not supposed to open, or you have some OS which is have vulnerability. So you need to think all aspect of the security. So this is actually in detail. It only covers the aspect of security. Whatever you are doing in DevOps, you keep doing that, plus add these stuff as a part of your security. Is this the plan phase when you are doing, when you are requirement gathering you are doing, then you have to plan at the same time what are your security aspect and what is the risk associated with that. Earlier we were doing the risk of the when it will release, the times related risk or product feature related risk. Now we have to think of the security related risk also. Then you have, if you are using third party vendors for some stuff, you need to have this mentioned in the contract on the security agreement also, so that you upfront see it's not only like your application is not vulnerable, but your partner application is vulnerable. Then you can't say that you don't have any issue, because at the end you are going to suffer. So you think in that perspective that what is going to impact your business, whatever the parties involved for running any application or any business, everyone should agree on a security level. Then you have secure design, continuous risk profiling, because today you have a very good mobile phone, you are using your app, tomorrow you get an update, there is a bug fix, go and update, because it may be some issues that they found it later, and now they know, now they are fixing, so go and update it. Because if they find it like later, that doesn't mean like you don't update. Sometime it happens you have some Ubuntu version that was have the vulnerability, you go and ask like I forgot my password, they will give you directly root user default root, and you can go in and you can change anything. So you have the day you find it, as soon as it fixed, and if you are part of operations, you will be knowing like there will be always OS patch coming up or security patch coming up, and they have to upgrade it as soon as possible. So misuse cases, so if you find any misuse cases, you think of that. Threat modeling, that we are going to look today as part of this session. Then security architecture, so you secure by your architecture, you don't think it like at the time of going live we will do pen test and we are secure. No, you have to secure by design, you should secure. So you need to, by design you need to be secure. That means your security architecture, so your infra architecture or your application architecture, think about security. That is must happen in the design phase itself. You should not wait till the end and then think, okay, now I got the issue, let's fix it. It will delay the processes. Then you have softwares. This is part where is currently it's pushed till here. I think every developer is there. However, many organization has tried to use the design, but at the part of Swiftlet, the most impact till today or till date is testing and development. We have tried. So what it is, writing secure code. So you write the code, you don't write SQL injection by knowing. If you are known, then you should learn, and you so as a developer it is a big responsibility to learn the secure coding practices. So here you are secure by design, here you are secure by security mindset. So you have to come with a security mindset and write secure code. Then write test cases that controls the security test cases also should write. So you go test driven development, behavior driven development. Now you have to think of something beyond that, which is actually for thinking of security. And if you see like test driven development, why it came, because what we wanted, don't find issues later in production or in UAT, we find it early. Behavior driven development says don't focus on like test driven, but you see the behavior of the application. Both have the same thing to achieve is, if you are going to find something which is not supposed to happen at the later, it will be very difficult to fix, or it is a more cost gets added. So what you try to do, you try to find it early. So as early you find any bug or defect, you can handle it very better way or faster way. If you find it after going production, it's always going to take time. It's the most of it going to, same applies to security. So you try to find all security related issue as early as possible. So once you are able to find, you will have at least a plan, or you know what can happen. You don't get after going in production and you get a surprise, okay, today my server is gone. Why? Because my application is down, because DDoS happened, someone tried, so many requests. And but if you plan already, then you know this is going to be a flaw and you have to handle it. Either you put somewhere some third party software to prevent DDoS, or you design your application or code like that that it should be able to handle DDoS. So it's more of like knowing this stuff early. Then you have secure software testing. This is SAST, is a static analysis tool, which is actually when your code is just simply your code base, it can scan and find if any potential security issue, it can find there. So there are tools available in the market that helps you in entire DevSecOps. Then you have dynamic testing, penetration testing, you have configuration management in case of monitoring and security review. So these things you have to, and if you don't have this tool, at least you start doing few things manually now also. You start thinking of doing secure code review. At least you can do here, you should have pen testing if you are internet facing, most of the organization have. So if you don't have any process, at least put some process, have an Excel sheet, get all the issues, known issues on that there, tick the all boxes and find, like even you have to do manually, please do it, because otherwise you have to lose your business or your application or your organization is going to feel the pain of not having the security. Then software disposal, no one cares about that. Anyone heard of like having software disposal have issues? We use copy machine, right, photocopy machine. Earlier days what you put one for paper, close it, press once, it give you one, you press again, you get it. Now how you get it in one shot, you get 10. Anyone have idea? No. It have a hard disk that is stored and just copy it. So once you think you have done, and your hard disk, if someone gets, suppose it have your resume or it have confidential thing that you have scanned or took photography, and if someone got that hard disk handy, your information is with that guy. So think before. So most organization, they have this hard disk, they crush it, they don't format. If you format and give it to you, like someone reuse that machine, everyone knows there are hell lot of software available in the market that can get the data from the formatted disk, right? Or you can go Google, try, there are software, you just need to pay maybe for some of them, and it will find that even you clean format in your machine, you get that software, it will get you all your data. So software disposal is also aspect of security. You don't expose your data, it's mostly with the hard disk because that stores the data. RAM and CPU you don't care because once you switched off, it's gone, but your hard disk is one of the storage device actually. So your storage device should be crushed, physically crushed, so that the data should not accessed by anyone. So what are the benefits? It's by cost fixing, it's relative to cost fixing what it is. So if you find in the system design that's well and nice, you design it and plan it accordingly. The higher level you go and find those security bugs, it is the multiple of that time you need to, it's a time and cost how much you have to pay. So if you find as early, if you go in production, it's going to be more than double of your effort. So you try thinking of security now. After that, I'm not going to read it. It is threat modeling, as the word itself is a model. So it is about knowing what are the threat possible. So you have to create models. So it's going to be diagram. How many of here have created DFDs ever? DFD, data flow diagram. Wow, nice. So anyone have no context level diagram? What is context level diagram? Okay, so we will see there's one small example what the DFD is and what is the data flow diagram, and then we see how it helps in the creating the model. Moving next, once you create a threat model, what answer you will get? You will able to, there are few things we know we don't know, right? So we know, we don't know, have no idea. So this will help you to know those stuff. By using this, you will find where is your high value assets, where are possibly you are going to be attacked, and what are the most relevant threats with your application, and is there any possibility that some attack you have not able to figure out. So no, you don't know. So these things you will be able to uncover it. And this is one of the sample model of DFD, yes, and DFD will automatically get converted to your threat model. This is a sample application, not sample application, sample diagram. You can find it on the Wikipedia. I just copied it from there. So this is a application, financial application. I'm just going to tell you what it is. These are the boxes are entities. These are actually your application or processes. These red lines are trust boundaries. So beyond this, you don't trust anyone. These are the very basic thing, and these arrows are actually data flow. So these arrows are like, if it's a one way, then it's one way data flow, and along with this, this is the label that what was the mode of communication. So this is, and this is, you can create it very simply. Now we know what are the available tools. You have this model. What are the available tools in the market that you can use it? Simple. Go open your Excel sheet, start diagram. It's a diagram. It's a simple DFD you have to create. You can open your Excel sheet. You can write. Sorry. You can create your own diagram and find out all these things. If you are very much only want to model, Microsoft Visio is available for you. That is specific for creating models. So you can design. That is old one we can use. Then you have the threat modeler. It is one of the it is one of the currently in market. It is not free, and it's quite expensive. So this is one of the application, and this is your Microsoft Threat Modeling Tool 2016. So this is the current version. There is a new in development version which is preview, that is also available. So you can try any of them. These two are quite difficult to manage. These two is specifically, this Microsoft Threat Modeling Tool is for, and it's free. First thing, it's free. Microsoft never gives few things free, but yes, it is free. You can go download, use. No one going to ask you like why you don't have a license. Actually, they created it for their development purpose, and they found like this is very useful. And with this, now they have open sourced it. So it was the internal tool. Now they have made it open, so you can go download from their sites and start using this one. So we are going to look only today on Microsoft Threat Modeling Tool. Our concept is going to be kind of same, but oops, it got a lot. Fine. So this works with the Stride. There are PASTA is for the threat modeler, the older one. There are few. These are threat methodology. This is a vast. So what exactly Stride stands for is spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, elevation of privilege. So these are the issues. So these are, if you can map it from the 5 of the basic one, it all maps there. So they took all those 5 and accordingly they have created this. You can read what is the example, and you will be spoofing is simply like I am pretending to be you. Tampering means changing your data. Repudiation means I have sent a mail but I have never sent. And you disclose your information, that means your data is used. Denial of service, your application is down. And elevation of privilege means you log in your net banking and somehow you become admin and transaction anyone wills, something like that. So these things are like, so we are going to look into the Stride model, which is belongs to Microsoft Threat Modeling Tool. So we will be seeing the threat modeling demo. So I will just show us very simple one so that you can. I'm just going to. Until now, if anyone have any questions, there was nothing such big. So if you still have anything, you can ask. So you can just simply open this. You will see This is a visual. You can create a model, open a model. Template I am not going to touch. It is also you can create your own template, but I am just going to create a model. Then you get very nice picture like this, which is a blank page. Now you can start drawing whatever you want. So what I am going to do, this is the stencils that you can use it for. I'm just going to close it for now so that you can see it bigger. So what I am going to do, I am going to create a browser. So this is my browser. Then I am going to create, no, okay, let's have a SQL database for now. Then I need a, maybe later I will add this. I'm not going to add trust boundary for now. Let's have one generic process. So I am having a web server. I'm making it super simple. Now we are kind of done. I'm doing a very basic stuff. Suppose I have something in the database that I simply serve to the browser if browser requests. So first thing, we got our all entities here. So once we have the entities, now we need to make it the connection, the data flow. So what I am going to do, I am going to control click both of them and bidirectional connect. Super simple to create this one and this one. We got it. Now you can decide like which type of data you have. So suppose I am going to create it generic flow. I will just change it to, you can convert from any generic to anything. So for me, for now it's maybe HTTP, which is insecure version. So I'm just going to change it to HTTP. Then this is my web server. Now I am going to trust boundaries. Okay, let me create a generic trust boundary. Oops, sorry. Oops. Control shed one more time so it can come here. Sample. So this is, I don't trust any of the outsider who is asking my web server to give any values. I don't trust those guys, and I am going to remove this generic process. I don't need. So this is one of the simplest. So it can be, this data flow can be, let it have, for now it's as it is. So this is your generic trust boundary and this is your sample. So it is very basic and very high level data flow diagram actually. With the diagram you just add few things, your trust boundaries and few stuff, and what you get with this, here you can't see anything. Then you move to an analysis view. Once you click on the analysis view, then you find all the possible threads with the stride model you can find here. So if you click on the category, you have all those. If it's abuse case or user defined and all these things possible, you can filter. So looking into that, you can see it's, and if you select any of them, it shows actually thread properties, right? So it says a spoofing. What is the category? It says spoofing, and what exactly the description, what a spoofing means is for you. So if you are very few unknown or you are designing, then you get at least what it can happen here. So it says like someone can spoof the stuff and can say that I am your web server and it can connect. So if you change it to HTTPS, then it will change. Then you have priority. So these default priorities you have, you can change it if you want default values, but for now you have this high priority because anyone can spoof. So you know, creating the diagram itself, what are the possible. Currently there are, I think, how many? With this small diagram you have only 20 possible threads. It may be few things are false positive. You can simply say you trust these two guys, then you can simply mark it like its status. You can make it not applicable for yourself. You can change whatever you want. You want need investigation. So the very first time you create your DFD and drawing some more lines, you are actually identifying all possible threats. Not everything, but yes, whatever the known possible threat, you can find it here itself. And if you are created this, the next thing you can do, you can create reports from here. So I'm going to click on create full report and click on generate report, and you can save it on desktop or maybe C drive. It's a demo. It's simply, oh, Okay, let's create a new folder and I can save it here. Okay, where is my mouse? Okay. I'm going to open it, c:/thread/demo.htm. I just open in Google Chrome. So looking into this, you will have this detail. So currently I have not put this value. You can always go and put this: who is the owner, who is reviewer, what is the who are the contributor, assumption, everything. And it's not, everything is not started the very first time, and everything is, so the slowly you get progress on that, you will see this number got changed. And each diagram, they will tell you how many diagrams. If you have multiple, you can have all of them. Then it will tell you that one by one where the actually threat is. So it will give you a pictorial view of how you can. So if it's spoofing, where it is, so it will be in bold. So wherever the bold, that means that guy have potential threat. So you can see that what it is, what is the description, and justification is currently there is nothing. If you have, say, like it's mitigated, then you can mention here in your, suppose I see, say this guy is not applicable, and you can see that I trust the guy, I trust the web server. Oops. And then you can simply click on save, and then once you, so you have to save it. So I'm just going to save at the same place, and if you generate the reports again, then it will change because one of them is already. So I'm going to say demo 1 and just save it, and it's open. Now one of them is not applicable. So it's a place where you can visualize your possible threat with your application very easily. And it's a long list, so all 20 will be interacted, and you see if it is a threat belongs to maybe somewhere else, then it will tell you everything. So you can use this report, who changed it and what changed, what is the progress. You can always have the entire report every time. Yes, it is additional work, there is no doubt on that, but security comes with the cost. So someone who is at the lead level or managing level, they can look into, or they can start doing this as their design phase, so that they know they can figure out their potential threat as early as possible in the design phase itself. This is one of the sample one. You can make it as complex, so it's a context level diagram. You can make it, break it, and the more you break, the more potential threat you will find within your application. Maybe your database is hosted to some other place, or you don't trust, then you need to add additional security and all those things. Anyone have anything with this threat model? Otherwise we will move next. I'm trying to finish it early.
Does it say like what steps to take?
You can always go and find. It doesn't say actually. It doesn't say like what exactly, but it will tell you what is possible thing can happen. But you can always go over internet and find like what are the steps you need to follow.
This diagram, where can I say that okay, I use cookies? What are the threats if I use
Cookies, I think it's there as a part of diagram. The data store and things should be have. You can add cookies, and if something it doesn't exist here, it is super flexible. You can change the XML part of this, and you can add your entire own stuff. If the physical laptop theft is not there, you can anytime can modify the template itself and add your stuff. You can add the stencil, you can add all the properties. So if I select this and then I go, there should be properties, view properties. No? Okay. I think right click and then I can see properties. So what are the name, what is it out of scope, reason for out of scope. So you have a lot of things, so you can find. And if you are using, I think Azure is in the list. If you are doing Azure development, then you have these stuff. You can use for the cloud also. So they have hell lot of list, and even it still doesn't satisfy your need, you can go add as many property as you want. If you figure out anything, you can remove the existing property, you can create your own stencil, everything you can do with this. It's a super flexible tool. So you decide what is here. If something that doesn't exist and no one knows, you can go and create here, use that, and you can share the template to everyone in your entire team, and they all can follow the same stuff.
So there are even sensors for cloud services?
I think yes, there is for Azure. I've seen that. Data flow. I think the premium version, the next version have that. Oh, no, actually, I go open. I think. Okay, let's save it. There is a Azure one that I looked. Where is my mouse? Okay, fine. So if I come here, you have this template, right? So here is a Azure template you will find actually in the premium version maybe. I don't have in 2016, but I have seen in one of the videos that have that. You have it here itself as a template where it says for Azure, so you can directly use. It's specific for Azure. So you have that. If I will find it, I will share it with you. So you can have that template and use that template for specific for your cloud thread designing. And you can create a template, you can like define a stencil, thread types, custom, you can do whatever you can think as a part of this structure. You can add or remove properties. That's it. And once you define, right, there will high priority, medium priority and low priority. Then how you decide which one you fix? Here is your answer. This is OWASP. You can always go and see this. So you see that whatever the likelihood, so even if it is a very high impact wise, but it's not likely to happen, then accordingly the severity will come, your priority will come, severity fixed. Then if it's high one and it likely never going to happen, then it will be like low priority. So the darker color or red color goes, then it's your critical. So you decide with this how you are going to fix that. So once you identify all the threats using the threat model, then you decide, you prioritize them according to, you can use this matrix and see, okay, it's going likely not to happen because in my internal no one can go and do a spoofing. Then you mark it NA and make it low priority, and you don't need to fix it, or you accept it like I am mitigating it, because there are multiple ways you go and fix, you ask others to fix, or you accept it, accept the risk. So at least you know you are going, you may have this, but you know within your intranet no one is going to do that. So you are, so the internet facing application have more threats than the internal facing one. And this is the workflow. Once you are done, you are not done. Like in the flow we say, like you do risk assessment every time. So every time a new bug or vulnerability is found, you need to go again, look into your diagram. If it's not there, add it, and then you think from there everything. So first you have to define something, like you create a rough flow diagram with that, and then you identify the threats, which help, threat modeling tools will help you to do that, and then you mitigate. Mitigation can be like fixing, like I say, or you accept it, or you able to fix half, then it's lowering the priority, and then you validate it, and you keep this cycle keep going every time. So every time a new feature comes, it's kind of like you have to do everything, or a new bug comes. Then if you are using open source, many people who use open source library, right, and each of the library can have lot of bug for yourself. It's very easy. The more easy things is happening, the more insecure things is happening. So if you get your open source library, you write one line, it's working fine, perfect, but it may comes with your 2 vulnerabilities that can comes with some issues that you even don't know. You are using their code and their code have bug, your application don't have bug, but still you are vulnerable. So you need to know that if you are using open source, you need to scan those guys so that you know, even they also don't know, they find it someday, they will fix it, then update again. It's something like a cycle which is going to never ending, and there is no software in this world have no bugs. And with the security you will find every day, because the hackers or the guys who are trying to break it are also getting smart, they have a lot of tools. So that's why now developers are also getting trained with those tools, so they can start thinking like hackers and they know like it is going to happen like this, so let us prevent it. So, now we see that this is the security, how the DevOps comes, what are the security way, and how we can use threat modeling to help us. Now, what are the challenges in part of DevSecOps? It is not only for threat modeling, it is a culture change. It is not like because no one think like, as a developer you will never think like I need to secure the application or security I should think. There are few challenges. Inadequate security education. From one of the survey in 2017, 70% guys said they don't know about security, and I think we also got a mail saying Vincent, and it was from someone else. So, if you think like you are secure, you are no one is going to attack you, you are in like sleeping state, you are not secure in this internet facing world. If you are connected to internet, you are not secure. So, you need to know what are the security things comes in. If you get a phishing email, right, because everyone has the Gmail account, should have, right, and everyone must have a few $1 billion in lottery, right. Now think, are you secure? Everyone is sending you emails without knowing you. It's a culture change. It's not going to be easy, because once it comes to human, they are reluctant to change. And then is a technology triangle, what we'll see. So, what we as a inadequate education, we should train our team to know more about security, how you can get, how social engineering happens, because now as application you can be like very secure with knowing everything, but the day one of your colleague will click on an email that will download some malware, you are no more secure. Even you are secure from outside, but from inside you can be insecure. So, culture change as a part of this is, don't think security can happen later. You can go and test, pen test, don't be dependent on pen test, you start thinking now. And then there is a us versus them mindset. It is mostly for developer, and there is a security team. So, security team asks you to do this, and then you say no, I am doing this because my roadmap says like I have to finish this in this quarter. If you ask me, it will stress to the next quarter, and those guys say, oh, my roadmap says I need to finish this in this quarter, so you have to do it. So, who is going to do that? So, this is like I should do or he should. So, it is a friction between developer team and the security team. Then there is a mindset, security implementation in application is delays or obstruction in the innovation. It is a mindset like I can code it fast, but if anyone say like you need to be secure also, oh, I need to write double or triple line of code just because I need to be secure. So, I am not able to do it faster, I am not able to check that if things works or not. But yes, you have to think security first, and then you can think on the features. This leads to the very nice stuff, which is security is not easy. This is a security triangle, very nice one. This is the ball, is the moving ball. This is known as moving ball. You need to give the user a very nice interface, and behind every click you need to have features, and you have to have a security also there, so that no one should be able to breach or do anything which is not expected to be done. And this is the place where your moving ball should be there. So, it should be the balance in between all of them. So, you have enough security, you have enough user interface as well as enough features. What happens? Let us move. Let us be more secure. More secure means always go by least privilege, right. The security first principle, the thumb rule is give least privilege. If I do not need to log into someone's account, I need to have only read access, then I get to that specify only read access, not even like write access or download access, only read. Then you are not giving the usability, because tomorrow if I have to give write access, you have to do it again. But yes, security comes with cost. Then you are going away from the features, because you are not allowing many people to do those stuff. Then you try, let us make it more usable. Once you go towards that, you are going far from the security. So, once you give it like more usability, okay, the user want to do this, they can be able to, other user want to do this, they should be able to do other stuff also. then your security will get compromised. So this triangle, so if this moving ball is in center, then you are well balanced. If it's not, it is the technology triangle. So you have to have a balance between your features and your security. You cannot compromise with any of them actually.